Jeff Bezos makes $2,800 every second. That's more than most people earn in a month. And while you've been reading this sentence, he just made another $14,000. But here's what's even crazier. Jeff is one of the top 3 richest people on the planet right now. He's sitting at the very top of modern wealth. Yet, if we zoom out and look at all of human history, there are people who controlled so much power and resources that they make today's billionaires look ordinary. So let's take a journey through time to find out how wealth has evolved and discover who really had the most money ever. Let's start in the 1980s with a different kind of businessman. While most CEOs were wearing suits in boardrooms, Pablo Escobar was building an empire in the jungles of Colombia. At his peak, Pablo's cocaine operation was pulling in $420 million every single week. That's $60 million per day. But here's what made Pablo different from everyone else on this list. His money wasn't in stocks, real estate, or company shares. It was just cash. Literal piles of money stacked in warehouses. He was spending $2,500 every week just buying rubber bands to hold it all together. Rats would eat about 10% of his cash reserves every year, costing him around $2 billion in losses. So while his official net worth was around $80 billion after adjusting for inflation, Pablo Escobar was probably the richest person in history if we're only counting actual physical cash. But let's rewind the clock and discuss a very different type of wealth. The year is 1863. The American Civil War is raging. Factories are booming in the North, and a young man named John Rockefeller sees an opportunity. Oil has just been discovered in Pennsylvania, and John knows this black liquid is about to change everything. He starts small with one refinery in Cleveland, but John has a strategy. He makes deals with railroads to ship his oil cheaper than anyone else. He undercuts his competitors until they go bankrupt. Then he buys them out. By 1880, John D. Rockefeller controls 90% of America's oil. Standard Oil is everywhere. Every lamp burning at night, every factory machine running, it all depends on Rockefeller's oil. But in 1911, the US government says, enough is enough. They break up Standard Oil into 34 separate companies. This should have destroyed Rockefeller's fortune, right? Wrong. He owns shares in all 34 new companies, and when they start competing with each other, their stock prices explode. The antitrust breakup actually makes Rockefeller richer than ever before. At his peak, his wealth equals 2% of the entire US economy. In today's money, that's somewhere between $400 billion and $600 billion. John D. Rockefeller becomes America's first billionaire and possibly the richest American to ever live. But before Rockefeller was counting his billions, there was a family in Europe that was financing entire nations. The year is 1744. America doesn't exist yet. Most people can't read. And in a small Jewish neighborhood in Germany, a boy named Meyer Amschel Rothschild is born. Meyer starts by selling rare coins. Then he becomes a banker. But his real genius move comes in the early 1800s. He sends his 5 sons to 5 different European cities: London, Paris, Vienna, Naples, and Frankfurt. Each son opens a bank, and suddenly, the Rothschilds have created the world's first international banking network. They fund wars on both sides. They pay for massive construction projects like the Suez Canal. They give loans that save entire countries from economic collapse. Kings and emperors come to them for money. But the Rothschilds face a serious problem. For centuries, Jewish people in Europe couldn't own land and were at constant risk of having their property seized. So the Rothschilds get creative. Instead of keeping their wealth in gold or real estate that could be stolen, they invest in stocks, bonds, and debts. They also use another strategy to keep wealth in the family: cousin marriages. Through smart finance and some questionable family planning, the Rothschilds build a fortune that some estimates put at $500 trillion in today's money. That number is probably exaggerated, but at their peak in the 1800s, the Rothschild family controlled more wealth than any single family in history. Now let's go even further back to the year 1324. A man named Mansa Musa rules the Mali Empire in West Africa. Mali sits on massive deposits of gold and salt, two of the most valuable resources in the medieval world. Musa decides to go on a pilgrimage to Mecca. But this isn't a simple journey. He brings 60,000 people with him, hundreds of camels, and thousands of pounds of gold. As he travels through Egypt and the Middle East, Musa hands out gold to everyone he meets. He gives so much gold away that he actually crashes the economy. Gold becomes so common that its value drops by 25% and doesn't recover for over a decade. After realizing his mistake, Musa borrows back some of the gold to try and fix the problem. Then he pays back all the loans at once, which crashes everything again. Historical accounts describe Musa covered head to toe in gold, sitting on a golden throne, with golden staffs carried by his servants. After his famous road trip, he starts appearing on European maps as a symbol of wealth and power. Estimating his actual net worth is nearly impossible because all the stories about him come from second-hand accounts. But most historians agree he controlled about half of the world's gold supply at the time. Common estimates put his wealth at around $400 billion in today's money. Some go much higher. Mansa Musa might be the richest person who ever lived, but we'll honestly never know for sure. Let's jump forward to the year 1908. A man named Henry Ford has an idea. Cars exist, but they're expensive luxury items only rich people can afford. Ford thinks, what if we could make cars cheap enough for regular working people? He studies meatpacking plants and sees how they move animal carcasses along a line where each worker does one specific task. Ford applies this concept to building cars. He creates the assembly line. Suddenly, building a Model T goes from taking 12 hours to just 90 minutes. The price drops from $850 to $290. The Model T becomes the best-selling car in the world for 50 years. But Ford does something else revolutionary. In 1914, he doubles his workers' wages from $2.50 to $5 per day. He cuts the work week from 6 days to 5. Other business owners think he's crazy, but Ford realizes that if he pays workers more, they can afford to buy his cars. It's genius. Ford's personal wealth reaches about $200 billion in today's dollars. But his real contribution might be even bigger. After Ford makes cars affordable, people start moving out of crowded cities into suburbs. They commute to work every day. Other companies copy his assembly line methods. The 5-day work week becomes standard. Many historians credit Henry Ford as the inventor of the modern middle class. His influence on how we live and work today might make him richer than his bank account ever showed. So after looking at all these people, who is actually the richest person in history? Here's the truth. Comparing wealth across different time periods is almost impossible. John D. Rockefeller owned 2% of the U.S. economy in 1913. Elon Musk owns about 1.4% today. So Rockefeller had a bigger slice, right? But here's the catch. The U.S. economy today is 22 times larger than it was in 1913. Rockefeller had a bigger slice of a much smaller pie. Elon Musk has a slightly smaller slice of a massively bigger pie. Plus, Musk's wealth is personal, documented, and liquid. He can actually use it. Unlike emperors and dictators whose power disappeared when they lost their throne. Unlike ancient kings whose wealth is mostly legend and exaggeration. Unlike Genghis Khan, who gave away all his war loot to keep his soldiers loyal. Elon's $400 billion is real money that he can spend, invest, or use to buy social media companies and shoot rockets into space. The world economy has grown exponentially. More people have more wealth than ever before in human history. And sitting at the top of the biggest economy that has ever existed is Elon Musk. Will someone eventually be richer? Probably. But based on history, when that happens, everyone else will be richer too. That's the evolution of wealth. from gold coins to oil empires to digital billions. The game has changed, but the players keep getting richer.